All right, hey guys, I've got the intake valve right here that I pulled from an engine that we had some problems with. I've already pulled it from here, but what I want to do is I want to go back through the process with this one, try to do a little bit quicker than last time, be a little bit better on video. So that's what we're going to do, is break this down mostly to get to here and show you how I did that. All right, so here we go. Would be really great now. The engine slides off the table into the oil bucket. It goes all over everything. All right, so first things first, I'm just gonna pull the drain bolt. Get it on the table a little bit so I can flex down there a little bit. There we go. That's probably it. All right, don't pull that all the way off yet. Get that over my oil bucket. That should keep us from having some oil mess when we pull some of this stuff off, okay? So just in case that you're like, where, this doesn't look like my engine, let me get you the CVT case, the swing arm that sits right here, and I'll show you what it is. All right, so this is how it would have looked. All right. Now, if you want to go a little bit further, put the case back on there, cover. Now that starts to look like the engine that you probably used to, right? But pull this off. We had a bolt here, bolt there, and then one on the inside, okay? Pop that off. Now, we've got the essence of the engine. This is where the combustion takes place. The crankcase, or the crankshaft. This is the crankcase, this is the head. It's a little bit long and unnecessary. It's easier to strip bolts when you've got the extension on. So get right up there. If you need the extension, great. But if you're using extension, just because, definitely find I'm more likely to strip stuff, okay? So now that that's like that, flip it around. I'm going the wrong way. Man, these bolts look fresh. So this is actually a Get 2 engine. So it's an engine from, well, '03 to '05-ish, I'd want to say. I have heard about a Get 1 engine, and when I say Get, obviously not obviously, but the Ruckus engine is a Get engine, okay? Right here, you see it says Get 2, okay? Current bikes are on Get 5. Most of the differences that people will even point at will be changes that happen sort of around the bike. There's a chain tensioner on top here, which, ta-da. So this is the chain tensioner. from a bike that's an 07 or later. This is actually off of Git 5. So a Git 3, 4, 5 should have it. I've seen some crossover on Git 3s. So this is a chain tensioner. It's going to work the same one as the one that we're about to pull off of this bike. All right. The difference is this vent right here. So this vent is actually a hole into the engine. It vents the crank. Okay. They were finding that pressure was building up in the engine and it was pushing dirt and gas through the crank bearings. And that was obviously not good, you know? So they opened up a hole in there, and this will actually attach to the PVC system, which I've deleted on my bike. And maybe we'll come back to and I'll show you what that is. But it's on the back right-hand side of the bike. There's usually a guard there, and then it's up in there. This is really the important part. The other part shuts it off at times for like emissions or something, but really this is the important part that lets the engine breathe so the pressure doesn't build up too much at that part, okay? So set that aside for a minute and go back to getting in here. So yeah, that is one of the differences between the newer engines and the older engines. On this engine, it also has a vacuum reference port on the manifold. And you really only get that with like a Git 2, maybe a Git 1. I've only heard of 1 or 2 Git 1s in the States. But that's 05 and earlier. It might even be 03. It's an earlier thing. It's earlier than 06. All right, so that should pop off. Oh, I've got that one in there. I always leave the one on top so it doesn't fall out. And I don't like leaving one of the ones on the bottom in, because then it hangs while you're trying to unscrew it. And this one seems to just rest properly. So, all right. All right, so now that we're in here, we have the rockers, okay? And behind the rockers in the center here is the cam. And the cam kind of looks like an egg, if you will, with the hole sort of offset. So it's sort of round, but then the distance goes out here. And so what happens is as it turns around, a valve sitting on it will get pushed up by that hill, that, you know, the pointy part of the egg, and then come back down. And so you've got two of them offset, which, here, let me show you what we're kind of getting to. All right. So you've got, this is actually in the engine and it spins. Let's see, this is the intake. And so then when we should have, so it turns this way. All right. So the intake opens. All right. See how that would push the valve and open? It actually pushes the rocker, and the rocker pushes the valve. But same thing. This pushes the intake. You probably have then the compression stroke. We're talking about 4 strokes, right? So we have the intake stroke while the intake valve is open. Intake valve closes, probably compresses, then gets to about top dead center. That's when the piston comes all the way to the top, maybe passes it just enough. And then you've got the explosion, combustion. It pushes the piston back, all right? And then as the piston by inertia wants to push back up, just the engine spinning, like that piston gets pushed back up by the engine, and this actually opens the exhaust valve, and now the exhaust can escape. Once that's all gone and the piston's all the way pushed to top dead center again, we're going to have the intake valve start to open, and that'll suck in gas from the carburetor. All right, that's in there. These rockers are riding on it. Okay, we need to pull that out and get this chain out, because this chain goes all the way back to, man, I think it goes back to here somewhere. We'll get to there eventually, but the head will not come off with the chain on, okay? So over here, use the extension for this, or maybe I'll just pull the coil off. All right. I really love having another socket on the other side of this. Sometimes it's just faster. All right. All right. Get in there, and we've got a bolt here, there. I don't think we need to open that one. I think we can just take the majority of everything off. Pretty sure, since it's coming from the radiator, it's part of the cooling system. Little spider on there. There is a part in there, once again, unless I'm looking at my notes, sometimes I forget this stuff. There's a part in there that controls the flow, or I feel like it served a thermostat purpose, and now I've kind of just gone a little bit dumb about that. But I know some people remove it and the coolant flows a little bit better, because the thing is, it's not the coolant flows better, it's that the engine is actually working to push the coolant while it's running. And in theory, and this is, I think, like a last little tiny bit of what you need for power or want or whatever, but in theory, this engine cools so well, you really don't need that part in there, and it's just resisting the flow of coolant, which is, I mean, everything in an engine is powered by the engine. So if you're running your air conditioner, on a car, well, guess what? The power that you're getting for the air conditioner, that for the compressor, for the air conditioner, for the electricity for the alternator, that all drags on your engine. Okay? So this is sort of a similar thing. You know what? I wonder how much coolant is sitting in my thing. Give me a second. All right, my apologies. Ugly plastic. I have a feeling coolant's going to go everywhere. All right. So, really love for this junk to be off. It's just really in my way, and now it's on a loose part. So I'm just going to get that off real quick. All right, guys. Pull the hoses off. A little bit of coolant in the line. Somebody drained this. This was a part engine, by the way, I got with a parts bike and a couple engines. So if you haven't heard me say it before, I tried to buy an engine off somebody who was selling a bike and multiple engines and parts, and he wanted to get rid of everything at once only. So I gave him a real low offer. I was like, hey, I mean, the money I could give you wouldn't be much. And he said, offer. I did. All right. So this is off, and I want to try to put screws in the right place on that. All right. Set that aside for a second. And then now we have got I believe this is the inner or outer magnet. I'm going to put a drive face on the crank so I can hold the engine, because the engine wants to turn when I'm turning this, and I need something to hold on to, and the chain's not going to do it. Okay. Leverage in the right place. All right, that's one. And the other one. It's two. Scoot that back over a little bit. You already see that magnet trying to pop out. Okay. All right. This is the part where you do want to have a wire or a string or something so that the engine, or so that the chain doesn't slip back in. So I'm just going to grab the chain here in a second. All right, so pull that magnet out. I swear there was an inner and outer magnet in the manual. All right, I'm going to put the screws for that in there. Kind of neat, they stick right to it. Shouldn't lose those. All right, and then now the sprocket, it's getting kind of crowded in here with parts. Now, sprocket should move out. All right, just got to work it a little bit, and then I can push it back a little. I can hold that and then pull that chain off of it. It was kind of stuck on there. This engine hasn't moved in a while. All right, and so now we've got a sprocket that was in there like that. All right, this is where take a wire and I think I can just sort of wrap it down there for a second. I'm not super worried about it, because if I really have to, I'll open up the whole engine and get to it. Okay? All right, so now the chain that goes all the way back between the head and the crankcase is no longer going to hold it on. We can slip the chain right out and won't be stuck on there. Okay? So we believe we need, of course, a 10 millimeter, which I set right here. All right. Important, very important, okay? You come in here to adjust the shims, all right? Never, ever, ever touch these, okay? Right here, there's a head gasket, and basically your combustion chamber is right behind it, but it basically, this sees combustion. When the piston runs up to top dead center, it's just about right there. You're gonna see what I mean in a minute. There's a gasket that seals this, and you actually have to put the head on evenly, and you have to tighten these down a little bit at a time so it sits perfectly nice on there. Otherwise, you're going to lose compression out there or have a blowout. So basically, if you're doing your shims, you decide to loosen these to get behind this plate, you're probably going to just lose your engine entirely unless you want to rebuild it. Then you're going to have to just buy another used engine, okay? So don't do this unless you're done with the engine or rebuilding it. And I still want to take them off a little bit at a time. If I were to loosen these, and then this one's still tight, I feel like the head's going to travel this way and then make kind of an uneven impression in the head gasket. I might be in a position where I will decide to reuse the head gasket and just see how it goes. It's not the best idea, but I have other things I need to buy, and head gasket is not super high on my list for the first time I rebuild an engine, if that's how it goes. All right, so gonna need an extension there. There we go. I'm telling you, if that strips, I'm just gonna be livid. Okay, so that socket sucks. All right, so these sockets right here that have 12 points instead of 6, you got to watch them like a hawk. All right, they are miserable, and I might throw it away even though it's a 10 millimeter. All right, I'm gonna show you something here. You see how that has 6 points, but it's knurled and all messed up? That's probably a bad one. Like I was saying, this 12-pointed one, that's stripping something. This one is a cheap socket, but it looks pretty good. So it does want the really small driver, which I don't think I can get the torque for that on there. So what I'm going to do is try this, but let's see if I can get this right. Get on there. Oh, it's just a little too big, isn't it? A little too small. 19, let me see if I can get something bigger here. Okay, I don't have anything bigger than a 19. So what I'm going to do is plan ahead, and I want to put it on like this so I can crank lefty-loosey. So I'm going to slide it on there. Get it on there and make sure it stays flush and on there. Try to hold the engine. Yeah, is it really gonna do that? There we go. And we will definitely be replacing that bolt. All right, these are nice. Even though it's got 12 points, that worked really good. There's those two. I'm trying to remember. I don't think there's any on the bottom. And then these. So I think we've got everything broke loose. Yeah. Quite good. Alright, keep that 19 around. Dump that 10. Dump that 10. That 10 we'll keep for other stuff, but I'm not going to put any real power on it. And do we have... We have 11 for some reason. That's just weird. Okay. Let's just pull these off. Quit messing around. make sure you can see these bolts over here. Okay, so let's double check, make sure there's not some bolts hiding somewhere. I don't see anything, so now it's just a matter of popping this off. I'm going to get a flathead. All right, and there's a little space right here. Right there. It should give me a little bit of space, and I'll just kind of twist it, and it's already coming right off. There's another one over here. Let me get that stupid dry face off of there. If you watch my older videos, you know I'm not a big fan of that yellow dry face. Oh, there we go. All right. Come on. Stuck on a cotter pin. Maybe I didn't pull it off quite straight enough. There we go. All right. Now, without dropping everything, fucking up that chain too much. Oh, there we go. Next time I won't bend that quite the way that I did. And now the head is off. Okay. Here's the head gasket, valves, stuff like that. So pretty thrilled to be at this point. I'm gonna get rid of this engine and we're gonna go to this, but let me grab that dry face again. I want to show you. Let me set the head off to the side for a minute. Let me show you. Once again, we're talking about a 4-stroke, right, guys? So it is, when you kick it, it goes this way and turns this way. Okay. So it turns this way. What you would have is you would be hopefully at top dead center when you go to first start your bike, or let's say kick it, okay? And let me explain something about kicking it for a minute. All right. Normally there would be the kickstart washer here, right? If you had this on, it seems like you're kicking it this way. So this way, but when you do, this comes up here and it spins this part this way. So it spins this way, okay? So it actually does rotate counterclockwise. Even though you're kicking it clockwise, get that back on a second, the engine is spinning counterclockwise. All right? So, okay, so what you would have in a 4-stroke is it would be at top dead center, which is going to be right there. You see I can kind of work it back and forth. That's top dead center. Okay? Top dead center. All right? Hopefully when you kick it, you'd be right there in theory. Okay? And it would intake. So it'd suck gas and air through the manifold that was right here, past the intake valve that was open, that is open. For the intake stroke, it would get to the bottom, and hopefully right around the bottom, it's gonna close the intake valve. Then it's gonna compress all that air and gas into a tight little space all the way up to top dead center, okay? And then just past top dead center, if you almost got to top dead center and it exploded, the engine will go backwards. Okay, so what you want to do is get to top dead center, and as it starts to go down, then I've heard that you can like ignite it before top dead center, maybe. So don't take my words exactly right, but essentially at top dead center, spark goes, it ignites the fuel, and that's when you have the power stroke, and now you're pushing that in. Okay, and that's your power stroke. And just the very nature of inertia of it moving on the crank and everything, it's going to come back out. The exhaust valve's going to be open, and it's going to just push all that exhaust back out, and now you're back to the intake stroke. All right, guys? So we're good there. There's one more thing that I want to show you while we're here, and make sure, can you see it? You're not going to be able to see it from there. This is your chain tension, all right? This is what's putting tension on your chain. I'm a little surprised I was able to get it off without undoing this, but let's see, where is that tool? This is the part that I was saying on a later engine starting in 06, there would be a hole in it for a positive crankcase ventilation, okay? PCV. And then you have that valve on the back right-hand side of your bike that closes off the ventilation at certain times. And the best that anybody's figured out is it's for emissions. That's the reason it needs to close. The reason this is here is to save your bearing. Okay, well, the hole on the other one. All right, so pull that off. There's a little gasket on there we don't want to lose. All right, and so that just pushes on the chain. All right, let me show you again. This is the newer one, all right, and it's the same. All they did is, come on, all they did is put a hole in here that this can go to, and that vents the pressure so that you don't have buildup and then getting the gas and dirt into your bearing, your crank bearing, because it's, you know, bearings don't care for that. Oh, one more thing. When you reassemble this and you put it in here, there's a screw down here, all right? And what it does is, see, this is actually pushed out, and it's got plenty of tension to push on the chain, right? So what you can do, you go in there, you turn it to the right, you'll see it wants to go back and push on that chain, right? You push it, bring it all the way up, it sort of locks into place. Now you can put it back onto the chain, and it'll just and hold the chain down as much as possible. If the chain gives way at all, it just keeps pressing, and then it locks to a point where it can't go back. All right, so we're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna go back to the head. All right, let's see how much you can see here. All right, cam has just fallen right out. We were at top dead center, and if it's at top dead center, cam can just fall out now that we've taken everything else out. All right, this is an older one. I don't think that we'd be able to see a difference between this and the newer one, but just for kicks and grins, you know, I feel like that the duration's just a smidge more there. Can't really say though, but you know, if you want to look or whatever, there you go. All right, probably figure out on the video later that I've swapped these, but I believe that's the newer one. This is the one we just dropped. All right, yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so with the intake valve up, and we know that because the exhaust manifold is here. All right, let me show you in the back here. If I were to push on, you know what? Let's get this gasket off. I know that I should replace it if I rebuild this engine, but man, I'm gonna pull it off real carefully, and I might just go real cheap, you know? Because I have things that, like I said earlier, that I'd like to buy. Head gasket. Ooh, yes. Alright, so there's the head gasket. I'll clean that up. I'll see if I can compare it to other head gaskets. I've got a couple here, so we'll figure that out. But I don't see anything particularly crazy. Whatever's missing is over there. So, alright. So here we've got the intake and the exhaust. You'll notice right away the intake is much, much bigger. The exhaust probably has a lot of power behind it. It's not as important. We want it to breathe in better, in my opinion. Back here, right where the shim goes, all right, that's going to be the intake. There's the shim for the exhaust. All right, I'm going to push on this so you can see the intake valve open. All right, hopefully you can see that. All right, push on it. There we go. That's the intake. All right, so should have taken the manifold off to be easier. So here we go. We've got these two like dowels basically. I'm sure there's a better name for it, so I'm gonna just kind of try to work them over. If I can just get them to turn a little bit, maybe that'll loosen it up. In the other engine, there was actually little holes on this one that would have helped get that out. Let's try this one. Sometimes move. Oh yes. See, it's coming out a little. Not sure why it wants to back in. All right. All right, let's. Exhaust is now out. Let's pull the shims while we're here too. Might be able to know something about the engine if they took care of it, or at least about the head. And it's a bit thinner, I have to say. It's not on the crazy thin side, but I don't know if there's going to be a number on it. We'll check later. Now the intake. Come on. That's nice and thick for an intake. It's not bad. So that this might be the head that we use, because I think the valves are good. Or at least the valves is what we're going to use, hopefully. If I rebuild an engine, which I keep every time I record a video, get a little closer to. We're gonna just have to put this back together. All right. So let me get this out. I'm not entirely certain how to do that without taking a plier to it, and I really don't want to do that. I want these to be nice. I guess they're not integral. Well, no, the rocker goes back and forth on them quite a bit. Any kind of grime or whatever will wear on it pretty quick. All right, I'm gonna figure out something clever so we can get that out. All right, guys, give me a second. Okay, I got a little bit of fuel line. I'm gonna cut in half. I'm probably being overly cautious here and not wanting to scratch that. It's probably super, super hard. But I'm just gonna stick this on the needle nose. All right, let's see if I can get in there. Nope, but you know what I did? I saw that hole I was talking about. Look at that. See that hole? Seems to only be on this one. Now, look at that. Pop it right out. All right. There's a little O-ring in there, and maybe, ooh, don't let that spring just go flying. All right. But you can see, it's just a little place that you're able to get that in there. Pop it over. All right. Something to understand about these. All right. We had this one here that had to be off to this side to make this shim. We had this one here that had to be over to this side to make the shim, so they're in there like this, right? And the larger flat, okay, is actually the part that's on the cam, okay? But like that, they are the same thing, okay? So we're not too worried about swapping those. Put that back down. And now the last thing to do, which is the thing that I've actually learned to do properly today, or not properly, but improperly, is we want to get these valves out. All right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to set this on there. I'm going to get my magnet. And I had a rather large socket to put right on there. So let me move some of these parts to a safer location. See if I can get this in a place for you guys as best as possible. All right. So we're going to pull off the intake first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this magnet, stick it in there, all right? And so it should grab the cotters if I push it down. Oh, okay, slightly new angle. We're going to try the exhaust one first, since I'm not having luck. I'm going to push that down. I can already hear I picked up a cotter or two. That's how it's supposed to go. So that's like the retainer, I believe. And look, I've got two cotters there. All right. And so now, I'm going to pull that spring before it falls out. Come around. I'm going to push that exhaust valve out. All right. And that doesn't look terrible, especially compared to the intake I pulled out of the other one. All right. Get it. So close. I don't know if you can see that cotter is coming out, kinda. It's super frustrating. Alright, I think I just don't have the socket in quite the right place because it might not be the perfect socket for the job. It's certainly not the right tool for the job. Alright guys, I'm going to try this 12mm socket instead. I think I can get that to seat on it a little bit better. And if you'll notice, if I put the magnet through it and I get it all the way through, which wants to be a pain in the ass now. The magnet really sticks out really well, okay? But what I want to do is get a wrench on there first, put that through so it's sticking nice and proud into there, and I'm going to seat that on there, and box wrench should give me enough leverage to push down on there. Please pick up that cotter pin. Oh, got it. Finally. There it is. There's the little guy.